I want to welcome everybody today as we look at how Nintex allows intelligent process automation to really power the government and public sector. There we go. And so a little bit about our firm. We've been a gold partner since day one in 2001. We're virtual technology specialists for the Microsoft Enterprise Group here in New York. We've won a number of awards and have worked with some very notable companies and have a high degree of success and recognition inside the industry. And that's based upon the high quality solutions that we've delivered to clients from Office 365, SharePoint, cloud applications, business intelligence, and connecting line of business systems and processes through Nintex. So Nintex with forms and workflow, Hawkeye for intelligent reporting, and document creation in the Nintex Workflow Cloud has helped us deliver solutions to those industries that we serve, from professional services to legal and on. And so the need to automate processes are pretty clear, and it really, at the end of the day, all collaboration is cross-departmental workflow, right? So you have to drive efficiency, drive accuracy. In this day and age, it's got to be cloud first, although Nintex will bring all your systems together, as we have for our clients. It's got to be scalable. And one of the major reasons to automate processes with Nintex at this day and age is that your old approach, the on-prem approach to customizations, just simply don't work in cloud or hybrid, and it's a dead end. And this is the time in the modernization of the enterprise to really make sure that you're prepared for the future. And the need to automate processes, though, again, I can't say it enough, is to bring people together in a way to work together efficiently and collaborate. So as it relates to the government sector, and the government working with people, working with citizens and such, there's a lot of pressure on the public to have a high degree of responsiveness from those government agencies they depend on every day. Also, budget is always tight, and with those constraints, you need to do more with less, and with that, that's driving the demand for modernization across agency and within the government agencies themselves and out to the public they serve. So solution architecture formerly was monolithic. Certainly as it relates to SharePoint, you had server-side code. These were one-offs. They were very IT intensive, very difficult to maintain over time, and really keep continuity of who built it and why, and then changing it years later. And then with every release, you're at peril of that customization failing. Also, this monolithic approach meant delayed return of business value and had a dependency on specific versions of .NET. The modern app model, of which Nintex is the premier example of, there's no farm deployment. Focus is user-driven. It's minimal IT. There's no downtime to deploy. You have no limitations of the technologies you can interact with, and it's rapid. So for the opportunity for government with digital technologies is pretty clear. Getting a digital front end away from paper and PDFs, automating and redesigning tasks so that data flows through now that you have a digitized public interface. And as part of this, to integrate analytics and empower the sharing between agencies and citizens, government and the people they serve, the people who rely on government. And so with that, federal and state and agencies can automate and optimate with workflows via Nintex that are intuitive, easy to design and maintain, fully integrating across the enterprise and other line of business systems. While we lead with SharePoint, one of the things that we do for our customers as information architects is connect applications of all manner and nature, and Nintex makes that easy. And the intelligence they bring to that process drives collaboration with people and workflow. And, basic principles, work easier, faster, and smarter is key to everything. One of the things I always like to mention about Nintex is that as you're trying to roll things out and satisfy your customers, with Nintex, this process automation works very well with agile processes, giving you that quick delivery. So that's why Nintex. It's one tool, and it automates processes across departments and the different uses you may have. It's driven by the business user. There's no code, and this means it's easy also to repurpose your IP. Nintex itself allows you to save chunks of action for reuse later, sort of building a palette of standard workflow actions that you might want to bring across different departments that have similar processes that are represented essentially in chunks for reuse. This means you can rapidly build and deploy. This adheres to the adages of Agile, of which we're very fond of and have had a high degree of success. And this means you can adapt to change rapidly, because that's what Agile is about. And through this, again, connect seamlessly to a whole variety of other systems to create a single solution, regardless of, for your users, regardless of where the different data points may reside and flow from one system to the other. So the Nintex workflow platform itself, you have advanced workflow, process intelligence, mobile apps, modern forms, and document generation. So this combination of the Nintex stack is really what powers these solutions. And so with these tools in hand and knowing the value they bring, so everybody from government administration and emergency systems, services rather, public works and services and defense, the need for in government administration, the high demand and the labor intensity around public grants and entitlements, license applications. And these are just some examples. Emergency services, that collaboration with people to get something done, that is what cross-agency coordination is about if you bring in FEMA and the fire department and food services. Post-incident reporting. And public works are driven by infrastructure development, city planning, how do you get the paperwork through to get the permits, again, easily and efficiently, that has value for the government agency and satisfies the citizens that you serve. And then defense, where budget planning and asset lifecycle management are just core. And so this goes, all these different applications across these different types of agencies move across operations, bringing people and departments together to have a single result. And so here are some additional use cases. I'm not going to read the screen at you. For those of you who signed up today, we'll send you a link to this recording and this PowerPoint so you can look at it. And so on today's demonstration, we're going to show the automation of paper processes, property tax refund claims, and show the different qualities of multi-level approval and DocGen with our guest today, Steve Witt from Nintex. And so finally, we have a Gig Werks modernization assessment. So for those of you who are interested in getting more information and seeing how Nintex and Gig Werks might be able to help your agencies, it's a nice program here where we'll review those systems, help document a conversion path, give you that assessment, and then suggest to you and help you craft an Agile solution to the build. So without further ado, I give you Steve Witt.
So again, thanks, Joe, for the introduction. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk through an example that's going to allow us to touch on a bunch of the Nintex technology stack in a pretty short amount of time. So as Joe mentioned, it's a property tax rebate process, but this could really be any paper-based process that you have in a government agency that touches a citizen. Now, I'm going to be showing you some of our modern cloud technology here, Nintex Workflow Cloud with the modern forms, process intelligence, etc. But we do deploy across the government in on-premise installations of SharePoint. We deploy in Office 365 or a combination thereof in a hybrid environment. So we have you covered in any version of SharePoint, or in this case, for the Workflow Cloud outside of SharePoint. So I have a fictional county here that we use, Harrington County. It's a beach community, and I've built out a couple of different examples here of these form-based solutions. So I'm going to show you a property rebate, but I also want to kind of highlight that this is not just about property tax rebates, but this is about anything where you would want a citizen to come in and fill out a form and process it, right? And that process is typically paper-based today, whether it be physically printing it out and mailing it in, or even taking a fillable PDF and emailing it to an address that needs to be processed. So pretty manual process, and we were able to build out forms. So we've got examples here of a property tax rebate. We also have a police records request, right? So if you wanted to go in and this is kind of the Freedom of Information Act type of stuff, if you wanted to get your arrest or a police report at some point, right? That's a paper-based process that you can now automate. We have some organizations that use Nintex to do community outreach programs, right? So water rebates as a program from the EPA, where if you swap out some water-consuming devices in your home for more energy-efficient ones like toilets, etc., you can take a picture, provide the receipt, and through the EPA you'll get a refund. So the idea here is that the use cases are pretty endless when you look at your organization and the types of forms that you would need to create that are paper today, and that you ultimately have a process behind it that you're going to automate. So again, for the purposes of what we're going to do today, I'm going to focus in on the property tax rebate. So this was actually built off of a real example of one of our local governments. They had a problem where they were doing this as an as a manual process. Citizens would prepay their property taxes, right? At the beginning of every year, you send the government a check, and then they would sell the property, and they were entitled to a refund for the unused portion of the taxes. So to do that, you have to fill out a form. So I actually took the form that they had. It was a PDF form, and replicated it and built it in Nintex. And I did that myself as a non-developer, right? Just as a business user, I was able to easily build out the form. Looks very similar to the original form. We just swapped out the actual government's logo and name and used our fictional county of Harrington County. So as part of this process, you need to provide some basic information. You provide your name, you provide the property address, the amount of the refund, what tax year it was, a tax account number, right, that track it. And then you also need to provide some files, right? So if I go in here, I can select this government 1098 form, right? This is just to show you the actual amount that you paid for the property tax and what you're entitled to for a rebate. Also, on this form that we built, I'll highlight the fact that we can put in rules, right? So if I wanted the check sent to a different address, right? Because I've actually moved from that property, I simply click a button and I can type in that. I uncheck it, it disappears. Also can click here that I understand that this is a legally binding document, and then I can click here to sign, and this is where we've introduced the idea for wet signatures. I can sign this with my finger, or I can sign this with my mouse. Right, and hit done, and now that'll put that in there. We're going to use that a little bit later on. The other thing to highlight here with the forms is when we built this out, this is actually HTML5 responsive forms. So if I come in here, I can resize my browser, and what you'll notice is it starts to resize my form. So if I was pulling this up on a tablet or a phone, it would resize it automatically. So really nice that we can pull this all together and not have to design necessarily different iterations for tablets and phones and for desktop PCs. It's going to size accordingly. We can also make this available through our mobile application if you wanted to. We have a mobile app that you can publish forms out to that way, and that if you have use cases where you're going to use it internally for things offline, you're using it for like field service, incident reporting. We have the departments of transportation that use it for tracking potholes and creating service requests for filling in those potholes. So a lot of things you can do with the idea of modern forms and mobile all kind of attached together. All right, so Steve Test is ready to submit his tax rebate. I think I filled everything out here. I've got my amount and everything. Yep, so I'm going to hit submit. All right, so this is going to go ahead and submit, and it's going to go ahead and start the processing. It's going to actually send me a confirmation email with a tracking number, but before it does that, it's actually going to go into our case management system. And in this particular use case, we're using Salesforce.com Service Cloud as our case management, but this could be Dynamic CRM or any other case management. It's going to create the case in that system for tracking purposes, for use in by the 311 operators, etc. And then it's going to grab that case number and put it in the email that gets sent out to me and saying, hey, your property tax rebate has been received, and here's your case number. One other thing to point out, and Joe touched on this in his presentation as well, and that's the idea of using data and analytics and reporting back to your citizens on what's happening. So after I hit submit, you notice here I got a dashboard. Now this was created with our process intelligence platform that we call Hawkeye. And then we were able to build out this dashboard using Microsoft Power BI. You can use any kind of dashboarding or BI tool you want. We prefer Power BI because it's embedded in our product. But what you see here is we're able to show in real time to the constituents that, all right, here's how many property tax refunds are pending approval. Here's the average refund value. Here's the average processing time, and you can actually see here on the map where those people are located. So again, you can craft this to be any information that you want to surface out. It's just a nice way. Again, we're gathering all that data. You've automated the process. Tracking it and adjusting the process are just as important as the initial automation of that process. So I'm going to leave this screen right now, and I am logged in over here in my email as Shannon Tillman. Shannon works for Harrington County. Hopefully momentarily here she's going to get an email. Looks like things are slowing down a little bit. So while that's happening, I'm going to show you the email confirmation message that Steve Witt received. Let's pull that over here. So you can see here's my Steve test. Thank you for submitting your property tax refund. Your tracking number is 1122. So that's the case number from the case management system. And then we've got the information down here in the body of the message. So again, just a quick email that was sent out to our citizen, just confirming that it was received. All right. All right, so now I'm back here. Sorry for jumping around. I was just waiting for the email to come in. I'm back here, logged in as Shannon Tillman. Now, Shannon received a task and a notification to verify the documents were received, right? So she gets an email, please review supplied documents for case 1122. You can actually see that we've attached the 1098 form to the message. So she can come in here and look at it. And what we notice here is that for this particular workflow, that not only is the 1098 form required, but also a valid form of ID is required as well. So she can come here and click on it, and this is where we're going to see Nintex forms again. This time it's going to be a task form. So you can see here we're putting the case number, the account number, the year refund, and the amount. And now Shannon has the ability to approve or reject. So I'm going to go ahead and click on reject and say need valid ID. And I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And what that's going to do is that's actually going to route it back to the citizen to create that additional information. This is one of the powers of our platform, is this human-centric aspect to workflow and intelligent process automation. We can control, using our forms technology, the user interface, not just from the beginning form that you fill out, but from every kind of human-centric piece that happens throughout the process, whether it be an approval task or a review task where you have to provide additional information. So think about maybe your procurement processes where it might go through 2 or 3 different people for approval. Maybe you have to gather different levels of justification as it goes up the chain. You can do that too. So it's not just read-only, but it's the ability to grab that additional information as the process moves on. Okay. So with that, I'm going to come back over here to my email, and you'll see here's my new task. Additional documentation for case 1122 is required. I come in here and it's saying, hey, you didn't provide the ID. I need more information. So I can click on this, just like Shannon did. I'll get a form again. Here we go, and it says now I need a valid ID, and I have the ability now to withdraw this, saying, "Hi, just kidding, I didn't really get it. I wasn't entitled to a refund." Or in this case, I'm going to hit resubmit. I'm going to go ahead and select the file, pick my driver's license, and hit open, and then I hit submit. So the last thing we're going to do in this example, and again, for demo purposes, we're going to skip over sending it back to Shannon. But in the real world, this would go back to Shannon. She would review it, verify everything is okay. But one of the things I'm going to do here for the demo is take all that information that was provided throughout this process, right? The original form and 1098 form that was uploaded, as well as the driver's license that was provided. And I'm going to take all of that, and I'm going to leverage the Nintex document generation capability to build out a structured document. I'm going to send it back to Steve Test one more time for him to review, and then we're going to leverage our lazy approval to approve that task. Now, I do that just to highlight the document generation capabilities of Nintex. So while that process is running, I'm going to drag this screen over here so you can see it. And you can see here, we're using Box in the back end to store all of our documents here, but this could just as easily be OneDrive or Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever system that you're using to store your documents in. I just happen to be using Box for this example. So if I go ahead and click on our case number, right? Go ahead and refresh here. So here's our case number 1122. And if I go in there, you'll see here, here's my driver's license, here's my 1098 form. And then I also have a tax claim case, 1122 draft.pdf. So we leveraged our document generation capability to build out this PDF that we sent out one more time to Steve Test to review. Now, the reason we would do that in something like this is, again, part of it is to show off the power of our document generation capability, but the other piece could be, if you wanted to send it out for another signature through, like a DocuSign or Adobe Sign, you could do that. But in reality here, the reason we're doing that is to store everything in one file so that we can put it in our record management system and store that with a record management policy, right? So this document now has, if I open it up, it has all the information from the original form injected into it. It has the signature that I put in there. It has the driver's license that I included, and then it has the 1098 form that I provided as well. So instead of having to worry and manage all three pieces of information separately, I can put it all together in one document and store it accordingly. So let me come in here, and the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into my email. And again, you can see here it says approved final tax claim for case 1122. If I go ahead and open that up, what you'll see is it's just an email where we've attached that document we just looked at. Here we're leveraging what we call lazy approval or express approval. What that does is I can come in here, I can look at this document, say everything looks good, and then using natural language, I can just hit reply to this email and type in the word approve or reject. You notice down here it lists the outcomes that are set up for this particular task. So just highlighting a different way that you can work with tasks within Nintex. I can just type in the word approve and hit send, and from there it would close out the process. This would be handed off to somebody who would actually cut the check and put it in the mail and send it to the end user. So again, this is an example of this type of process, paper-based process, where we were able to build this out. And I built this entire process using our platform in less than a day. And that was including setting up accounts with Box and setting up a developer account with Salesforce and building out those connections. So from here, I'm going to go in and show you how easy it is to build out these processes. Again, myself as a non-developer, we're able to go in and build this out quickly and easily. All right. So here I am in Nintex Workflow Cloud. This is our standalone cloud-based system. You'll get a very similar interface out of our Office 365 product as well as our SharePoint on-premise product. So when you're logged into Nintex Workflow Cloud, you have the ability to create workflows. You can see here all the workflows that I have built. I can come in here and create a new workflow. And everything you're going to do here is going to be all done in the browser. And again, it's very low-code, no-code. So the first thing I need to do when building out any process is pick a start event. So I click on start event, and we have a host of connectors available today, and you can actually extend these into other systems with the forthcoming release of Nintex extensions. You'll be able to listen into other systems. But by default, we can listen into CRM systems, we can listen into file sync and share systems, and help desk systems. But here, because I want to start with a form, I select the connector as Nintex. You notice here I have a form. I can do a component workflow, or I can do a schedule, just have this workflow run on a timer job, or run on the schedule. I'm going to go ahead and click form. I have the ability to say, hey, is this, you want this to be in mobile enabled? I can click that, and then I start to design the form. So with the canvas here and on the left-hand side, here's all the different form controls that we can use to build out our process. Right, so in our case, we had a number of text fields. I just dragged those onto the canvas. So I can do short text. We do short text here. We have a file that wanted to upload, right? We needed to capture some information here. We have our signature control. I can put that up here, right? So now we can start to build out the form that we need to start this process quickly and easily. And again, if I want to come in here and say, all right, this is going to be first name. You notice all the creature comforts you would expect from a low-code platform. Come in here, you can put in things like placeholders or test mask, the mask for the test. So if it's a phone number, making sure they put it in a phone number format. So real easy to build out your form. Come in here and we'll say this is last name. And you can see as I type, it refreshes over here on the left, just as I do it. So as I highlighted on my form, not every form is just here's the information that you want to fill out. You want to have it be dynamic, right? So this is where we can get into building out rules, right? So maybe we want to hide or show values. We can come up here to the rules engine, and we have the ability to create rules when the form loads on form import, and now just released this week was on form submit. So really have the ability to build out a dynamic form that adjusts to the data that the end user is putting into that form. So I'm going to go ahead and close this or move over here where I have actually the form and workflow that we walked through today built out. So if I come in here and look at this, starts with a form. And if I go into that form, you'll see the rules that we have set up here, right? So, you know, that idea of showing and hiding, if I check the box that says the mailing address is different than the property address, that's a real simple rule that says if this box is checked, then show these fields, and if it's not, then hide those fields. So again, real easy to build it out, no code involved. It's all configuration. All right. So now that we have our form, and again, if I wanted to come in here and make modifications, I could do that. I could move things around. I could put additional information in here. I mentioned the masks. So if I click this and you look at the phone number field, we can say, all right, this is the placeholder. So that's what shows up in kind of the grayed out fashion. And this is what shows up for the masking. So people will be required to put in phone numbers in that format. Okay, so once we have the form created, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. Then it's time to build out our workflow. And very similar to forms, this is all very low code, no code. It's all drag and drop. Instead of form controls on the left, we have what we call Nintex workflow actions. So all you would need to do, so in our example, maybe we want to send an email to somebody, and we drag that onto the canvas, and then we configure the action. So decide on who we want to send the address to, the display name of the sender that we want to have it come from, the subject line in the message body, and even if we want to put some file attachments in there. So it's just a matter of configuring these actions to do what you want them to do. All right, go ahead and delete this one. So again, I mentioned that we were using a couple different systems on the back end here. So this is where we're able to use our connections with other systems. Again, natively, we support connections to things like Salesforce and Dynamic CRM. So the next step in the process here is to create a record in Salesforce and then retrieve the ID for that record. And then we created that folder in Box. If you remember when we looked at Box, everything was organized by that case number. So we created the case first, and then we're using that throughout the workflow in different areas. So once we create this connection, we can use all of the actions that we have available here on the left for Box or Salesforce to do things within the process really easily, right? So I can go back in and constantly update the status in Salesforce or Dynamic CRM. I can go back in and upload the subsequent documents that we gather throughout the process, and I can put those in the box. And then from there, we're going to leverage what we call a state machine or branch by stage now, where we're going to create this idea of kind of like your swim lanes, right? If you're building out your process map, you're going to build out your swim lanes and have a couple different things happen. So at first, we assigned this to Shannon Tillman and asked her to review whether all the information was provided. And if she rejected it, it would send it back to the originator and assign them a task to provide the additional information. Again, in the real world, this could happen 3 or 4 times until we reached a specific outcome. And then from there, it would go out through the final review, and then the process would create the document and then complete, or actually would create the document, send it for final review, and then complete. So the idea here is this can go ebb and flow. It does not have to be a linear process by any means, right? We can send this back and forth and route it around accordingly based on the people who need to review it and the people who need to approve it. So a couple of the other things to highlight here as we wrap up, and then we'll take some questions, is some of the other powerful kind of features within the platform, right? So what we look at when we talk about assigning a task to somebody, this is where we're going to assign Shannon the ability to review, but we're also going to put a lot of kind of information in the configuration here so that, if she happens to be unavailable or she misses the task assignment, we can send out reminders, right? So I don't have any configured here because I approve it really quick during my demos, but I can send out reminders that say, hey, you need to review this document. Remember, it's in your queue. Or even more importantly than doing reminders is actually doing escalations, right? So if this is something that's important and it needs to be handled and there's an SLA that's 3 days, then maybe after a day and a half or 2 days, you can assign this to somebody else. So again, you're going to find a lot of power as you go through the 100 or so actions that we have available when you configure them to control them, not just moving data from point A to point B, but actually controlling them through their life cycle and escalating and moving things around. A couple other actions to highlight. You'll see in here that we have a couple of beacons. Starting with this beacon up on top, and then each stage we have beacons. So when we looked at our report or our dashboard using Nintex Hawkeye, the way you gather data from your process and pass it to Hawkeye is using beacons. Right, so if I look here on the left, you'll see Hawkeye, and I have 3 different beacons that I can use. I have a beacon, a beginning, and an ending beacon. So a general beacon just says here at the beginning, I want to capture a bunch of metadata and write it to the process intelligent data store. But down here, because these have a start and end for each phase, and we want to kind of track them as phases in our process, we use a beginning beacon, and then we use an ending beacon. So this will capture not only data, but it'll capture date and timestamps for when it starts and when it stops, so that when we look at that dashboard, you can clearly see where the bottlenecks are, where, how much time is it taking certain people to approve certain things. Okay. And then the last thing I'll highlight here as we wrap up is I mentioned document generation. So you can see here we have our document generation action, and what that's actually doing is there's a Word document that we have. Go ahead. Open this up. So I have a Word document template. For Harrington County. It looks like this. And you can see in here we have, let me zoom in. You can see here we have this is what we call document tags in our document tagger for document generation. So this says what data from the workflow we're going to put into the document. So think of this as kind of the old school mail merge from Microsoft Word, right? Where we can take data and say, hey, we want to put it here in our particular document. So this is where we're going to put the tax account number, the property address, etc. So really easy to build this out. The template is all Microsoft Word, and here's where we're going to put the signature, and here's where we're going to put those images. And I build this out, and then at this point in the process, it's going to take all the data, it's going to inject it into that Word document, and then it's going to save it accordingly. In our case, we built a dynamic a title for our document, which was tax claim, and then the case number, which was 0001122 draft.pdf. Right, so real easy to build out the documents that you need during a process. So we see customers use this for everything from incident reporting or something like this, where you want to formalize a workflow into a document, to things like contract lifecycle management and statements of work and things like that. So again, you can see how we're able to build out a pretty powerful document generation capability quickly and easily without writing any code. Okay, and then the last thing, I know I said I think the document generation was going to be the last thing, but I will touch on one other aspect because it's the power of this platform, which is the ability to extend this a platform into beyond just the systems that we support natively, like Salesforce Box, and that's using what we call extensions, right? The extension framework allows you to build connectors, essentially workflow actions that tie into any system that you might use, right? So if you're using an ERP system that's not listed here, is not one of the ones we provide, but you want to have integration to it. So you can see here we have SAP integration that was provided by one of our partners as an extension, right? So we can create POs and update POs in SAP. We can integrate with things like Effisoft, who does smart capture. So if we wanted to take this process and actually start with scanned documents, right? So we'll do the web form, but we'll also support scanning documents as well. We could OCR all of that and use it in the process. So again, the possibilities are essentially endless in what you can do, because you can extend this to touch any other platform that you support. Okay. So that's what I wanted to cover, and I think that's the amount of time I had to cover it in. So hopefully that gives you a quick overview of the Nintex Intelligent Process Automation Platform, covering on what we can do with forms and mobile, advanced workflow, document generation, and process intelligence.
Please do hit us up with questions. We're happy to answer them or forward them over to our friends at Nintex, and look forward to having you all on next time.